Okay, let's have some fun using some activities in Python. So activity 1 is about computation on arrays and aggregates. Click on the link. It will, again, I'm going to open it in a new tab. So this will open the notebook that I gave you. For me, it say last edited November 9, so it shows some information for me. But for you, it's not going to show any of those. So what you could do, click on File, and then save a copy in Drive. Okay, you can do this. So you may not have even the accessibility of saving that or not. Just click on Save a copy in Drive. After you save a copy in Drive, you would be able to manipulate this. As you can see, there are different notes already there. These are created using text. You can see some headings up here and then some paragraphs, types of writing here. Same thing here, summing a value in an array, import NumPy as NP. So this is, we import NumPy as NP when we want to do any computation. For instance, in this case, I want to create a matrix of, a vector of 100 numbers, right? 100 random numbers. So in order to create that random number, I'm going to need something called NumPy, right? If I don't have that NumPy, this is not going to work. Last time I showed you, like for instance, if I don't have that NumPy, if I run this, let's say for a second, because it's doing the computation, it should give me an error. It is give me an error because it doesn't know NP. It doesn't know NP. Even if I delete NP, still it's going to give me an error because random is not a function in Python. So I'm going to use np.this. I put here import NumPy as NP. You can call it anything you want, but again, the easiest way would be use NumPy. I'm going to put like MinPy. So I'm going to call this one. So whatever name you use here, you're going to use it here. As for simplicity, I need to run this first because I put it as MinPy. Then I would be able to run this. As you can see, I can change the name here, I can change the name here. For simplicity, we use NP because NP is short for NumPy, and then that will be so much easier to use. You can see here I have, again, I need to run it again. I create a random of 100 values, and then that random numbers are putting everything in a vector called L. Print L, sum L, print max of L. So you can do different things in here. So I said do the summation of L, and then I'm not sure whether I can actually print. Let me just change here. Print sum of L. So the sum of L is actually 49.3 when I add all these 100 number. It kind of makes sense because when you create a random number, you pick it between 0 and 1. The average of it would be 0.5, and then you have 100 of them. It ended up as 49. If I change this time become 53. So kind of you are wiggling around 50 for the sum of these random numbers. Now you can use this, you can use sum because sum is internal function in Python, or you can just use np sum. It gave you the same values because if you want to use the sum as a function inside the NumPy library. In the next one I create...
Professor?
Yes, please.
I'm getting a different sum.
So you should get a different sum because this is random numbers, right? Even if I run the same code again, I'm going to get something 52 this time.
Oh, okay.
Okay, because this is a random 100 random numbers. So every time that you run it, you get a different set of numbers. This time I got 52.6. And that's actually the nature of being random. In the next part, you can use either sum of L or you can use np dot sum of L. I have, like for instance, in this case, I want to create a random of 1 million numbers, right? I want to create 1 million numbers, and then I want to see how much time it takes to do this. So when you put time it's going to tell us how much the computation take times. So if you run this, you can see it's working forever because I want to create 1 million random number. And I'm using an online version, but again, this one is telling me 10 loops, the best of 3, 168 millisecond per loop, and then this is 1000 loop, the best of this. So again, this is like what we did. We compared sum with NP sum. So if you use NP sum, that takes more time than the sum itself, because sum itself is internal function in Python, but NP sum I need to go to a different library to do that. And this is just an example of when you want to time in your computation. It's going to be important for Python because when we use large database, time is a factor. Time is important for us. Not only time, the computation cost. Who will pay for this, right? Right now I'm using the server in Google, but if my file becomes slightly larger, they're not going to take care of it. I have to buy a plan. I have to buy those computation. There are different ways you can buy them online. You can buy through Amazon Web Services. That's the place that many people they use it. But for now, it's just going to give you an idea of the timing of it. So I want to get a minimum or maximum of the array. Again, we already have 1 million variables here. For fun, I want to just gonna say print a big array. So let me just to add a code here. Print the big array. So let me just run this. You see, it doesn't print 1 million variables. What it did just give me something look like this, because I'm not gonna use the whole space doing that. I can find minimum and maximum of the big array. So this is the min, this is the max. If I run this, give me what's the minimum, what's the maximum is. You see, if you do this, it doesn't change. It's still 2.98, 0.999. If I go and rerun this again, I rerun the big array, that thing will change. So if I come back and run, this cell block is an amazing thing, because you can do it line by line. You can go there, run this, and then I run this, the number will change. So it used to be 2.98, now it's gone 2.19. So, and then to the power of -7, it was -6. So because these are random numbers, or keep changing. You can use the same function using npmin. Again, has done some timing and showing you that it takes a lot more time to use the npmin rather than just the min itself. We have a print here, print function, and then again it can print the .min. You can use like this, print the minimum, print the maximum, and go ahead from there. So sometimes you don't need to actually put minimum of this. You see, we put minimum of big array. Let me just do something to what do I mean. So I'm going to say big array Okay, if I have big array, get the minimum of this. Subtract this from minimum of, I believe these two are the same thing, right? If I want to refer to it somewhere, I can use min of this, or I can use this times min. This should give me the same result. If you run this, I got 0. Because these two are the same. That's what it means, right? You can use min like this, or I can use something like funnier than this. I can use like np.min. You're going to give me 0 again. Right? Different ways that you can show variables. In the next example, I want to create a random of 3 by 4 matrix, and then I'm going to ask it to print it. So when you use random.random.np, this actually generates any sort of random number you want. In this case, I create a 3 by 4. I can just make just like maybe 3 by 3 and run this. I'm going to print a 3 by 3 matrix for you of a random number. If you are willing to, again, if you don't want to do random number, you want to do something else. For instance, you want to have you want to put different numbers, and then those numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, put them in different metrics. You can do all those activities that we used to do in MATLAB in down here too. We use the msum. This one is used for when you want to get into, like for instance, you want to get into what is the minimum of, like the first one is the sum, m.sum. You can use this, or you can say sum of m. It gives you the same thing, right? You see here, if I use sum of m. So the difference of this, so it's give me the sum of, when I use sum of m, it actually sum of each of those columns. So the first column, the sum is 1.4, the next column, and then the third column. So if I want to get like sum of everything, I have to use sum. Okay, and then do that. This gives me one single variable. Let me just to delete this and then keep what we had. You see, this is what you had. It gives you the summation of all of it. If you want to use the other function, you have to use sum. Otherwise, the first sum will simply add the columns together. And then that you can see the column, and it doesn't show the other one, because if I want to get the other one showed, I can just put a print behind that to show it. I can have the minimum for axis equal to 0. In this case, where I have msum, I'm going to put down here axis equal to 0. See what's happening. Let me just delete this. You see, it generates very similar values that I got, because when I say axis equal to 0, meaning that sum of the column, and I put axis equal to 1, I guess that's the sum of the rows, right? This is the sum of the rows. If you want to get the sum of rows, you can say axis equal to 1. If you want to get the sum of column, you can say axis equal to 0. I can continue the same calculation, but again, I don't want to go over all this stuff. But there are all sorts of functions that you want to use. If you want to find a mean of a function, you can put np.mean, np.std, that give you a standard deviation, give you max, median. If you want to use percentile, you can use percentile, and then different ways to do that. So I want to jump into the second activity. The second one, the second activity within this file, which is about read CSV file and analyze the statistics. So what we do is that many times the data that we use for Python, they are stored somewhere online. And those databases, you can actually access to them. For instance, if I say cancer database for Python, give you different links that actually you can get access to those data sets. Again, there are different one of them. The one I use, this is the kaggle.com. This has all sorts of libraries for different things that you want to use. They have libraries for, if you click on data here, they put data here every day. Every types of data that you want to get, you can get them from here. I already selected 10 databases from here for your projects. But in our case, I already put the data on my weblog, and I want to import those data from the weblog. If you separately, like just get Control-C the address from here, I'm going to put it in Google. Again, I downloaded the data. I want to see them with Excel. Excel automatically open a file which is CSV, comma separated value. In this case, what I have on my data, I have mile per gallon, number of cylinders, the displacement, I have the horsepower. Every character for a car, I have them here. Down here, I have the name of a car, and all of my data, I have 33 values. So this is the data that I have. This is a comma separated value. So what do we mean? We mean, again, I open it with Excel. I want to open it with something else. So let me just define that file. This is the file. If you right click on the file, you can open it with a different software. For instance, I have a Notepad++, or I want to simply open it with a Notepad. Okay, when you open a CSV file, this is actually a text file. This is a text file and has a comma between it. So this comma, that's why we call it comma separated values. Make the job very easy because when you were to put quotation, that means this is the text, and then I have simply a comma between them that separates different values from each other. Again, I review that data in Excel. I want to import everything, bring them back into Python. So the code that we use for that, you can simply, again, I need to import pandas. Pandas, what it does is actually used for whenever you want to import, like it has a function for reading CSV file. I want to get that function in, and then I define the columns. The columns are this, and then from there on I'm good to go, and I'm good to go to play with my database. So first is import pandas as PD, and this is the address I'm using. Cars equal to pd.ca read CSV, the address, and then the columns are, okay, already columns are car name, use a comma. If you look at here, this is an example of a list. If you remember when I told you students are this, so this is the columns, and then when I put cars.column, meaning that this is the definition of those columns. These are actually all within the pandas, and then I have mpg is equal to car.mpg, and that mpg is coming from here. Okay, mile per gallon. And then for the names, I can say what's the mpg max. Like for instance, if I change the name of here, I call this mile per gallon. Okay, I didn't use the space because just to avoid confusion. So if I run this, it's going to give me an error because I put here mile per gallon. Down here is the mpg. That guy doesn't know that. So I'm going to copy this. I just want to show you what I'm doing, right? Mile per gallon. And it did print whatever you asked him to print. So the car names, C names, and then if you can see here, it changed the name of this to mile per gallon in the file, in the CSV file that I had that used to call mpg, but I changed the name of it. I call it mile per gallon, and I create a new variable here. I call cars mile per gallon here, and then the maximum of mile per gallon is printed down here, which is 33.9. That's what I exactly asked. I asked him to do the mpg max. That's how you import the data to Python. So use pandas, read CSV. You can define the columns, and then from there you can define the variables. And those variables are, again, I put everything in that column of cars. In the column of mile per gallon, I put everything in a new vector. I call that vector mpg. Same thing here. Cars on the name, I call them C names, car names. And then I ask print cars. If I ask like print C names, it's gonna print the name of the cars. So far we learn how to import different data sets into Python. So the next one, I have a different files. Again, that file you use it a lot in different activities we have. And then in this file I have the date, the time, humidity, temperature, wind speed, car, truck, wind direction, NOx, and PM 2.5. I want to import this file to Python. I'm going to just copy paste the same code I had. Import. You don't need to have this one. Import pandas as PD because you already imported in the line above. But for now, I'm going to just leave it there. The address is this, and then dataset PD, and then once you got the dataset, you can define the columns, what the columns are, and then I said car traffic is dataset.car. Again, down here I put value of car, and then print car traffic. That's how we do the printing of the variables. Then you can actually create a summary of it. What's the mean of it? What's the standard deviation? What's the maximum? What's the minimum? And then going ahead from there with percentile. At the end, I have a little bit of activity that I use import matplot, and then in importing matplot I want to create a histogram. So again, this was very overview. I want to go over your project one and then do some hands-on activity with what do we mean. So go click on project one, open that documents. Okay, in this documents it asks us import the traffic data from here. The data headings are this. Create a statistical report for humidity, temperature, and then the report should include mean, max, minimum, maximum, median 25 percentile, 50 percentile, and 75 percentile. Create a histogram for the humidity, whatever there. Please organize them in different subplots, and then create a scatter plot between these things. So the top one, you can just simply get it done, and it's already done. Create a statistical report for this. Okay, I'm gonna copy this from here, bring it back to the file I have. The funny part is that whatever changes I make, you would be able to see them. So I already imported the data here. I'm going to add a code down here maybe. Just to add a code here. Okay, it was added to the end of the code. So let's bring this thing up. Bring it slightly up.
Professor,
Yes.
can you slow down a little bit? I had to go back to